Quick links: the cage, sightseeing at a classic landmark. The map room, for a little known advantage. The crash site, for lots of loot and a good fight. The relic, for the best early game battles. The desert, for a quieter start after being reworked. Behind the scenes, Apex Legends' original Kings Canyon map has finally returned to the game in Season 14, Hunted, with several new locations and optimal landing spots for players to explore. Respawn Entertainment's Battle Royale is still going strong with its latest season promising plenty of new additions to the game. This includes the introduction of new Recon Legend Vantage, a brand new battle pass, and several much-needed balance tweaks to weapons and legends alike. Despite fresh rumors going around about a single-player spin-off Apex Legends title, the Apex community's eyes remain firmly on the reforged Kings Canyon map, the latest battleground for the game's newest season. Located on the lawless desert planet of Solace, Kings Canyon is the original Apex Legends map, launching with the game during its surprise launch in 2019. Since then, 3 major new maps, World's Edge, Olympus, and Stormpoint have been introduced, with Respawn rotating maps in and out on a seasonal basis. Despite the new maps offering players a change of scenery on a fairly regular basis, Kings Canyon remains popular with the Apex community, with one of the game's senior-level designers, Michael Shannon, highlighting the importance of player feedback for the map's recent redesign in an official breakdown of map changes. Map updates are a common seasonal change, with Apex Legends Savior's Season updating the Stormpoint map. As such, the reforged Kings Canyon map is significantly different to the Kings Canyon of previous seasons, with players now adopting new strategies, familiarizing themselves with new points of interest, and picking the best landing spots to get a head start on other duos and trios. Players can take 2 broad approaches to choosing a landing spot in Apex Legends. Landing in areas with a high concentration of players offers a chaotic early game where survival depends on luck and skill. Alternatively, choosing quieter spots allows players to find and equip good gear, but they might find themselves at a disadvantage against players who chose busy landing zones and emerged victorious with top-tier Evo shields. Fast-moving, offense-based legends such as Ashe can fare better than average in popular landing zones, but early game fights tend to be highly unpredictable. Luckily, Kings Canyon has great landing spots for players of both stripes. The cage, sightseeing at a classic landmark. 2 images close. The cage is something of a classic Kings Canyon landmark in Apex Legends. The cage area used to feature one of the tallest structures in the Apex games, with players battling for control of the structure's highly defensible upper levels. However, the whole area has been reworked for Season 14, and the cage itself has had its height reduced, addressing player feedback that dislodging a squad entrenched in the cage's upper levels was proving too difficult. As such, fights over the area have only intensified, serving as an excellent example of why Apex Legends is currently the most stressful FPS out there. The cage's upper levels are still a strong position to be in, but players will find they'll have a harder time holding them. It's a great place to land for a fun early game battle, and there's usually a lot of good quality gear and equipment in the area, including an explosive hold containing high-tier loot that can be cracked open with grenades. The map room. For a little-known advantage, 2 images close. Located in a quiet spot in the southeast portion of Kings Canyon, the map room isn't a particularly popular landing spot, even though high-tier loot can be found there in abundance. Players who choose to land here will usually find themselves alone and free to loot as they please until the circle closes in. However, this location also has a secret that players using Recon Legends such as the newly added Legend Vantage can exploit to get a powerful advantage over their opponents. Inside the map room, players can find a holographic map of Kings Canyon that only Recon Legends can interact with in Apex Legends. When interacted with, the map will show players the locations of all other enemy duos and trios in real time, as well as highlighting the location of the next ring. This effect is only temporary, but it can clue players into the rough locations of nearby enemy squads. The crash site. For lots of loot and a good fight. 2 images close. The crash site in the northernmost part of Kings Canyon offers an abundance of high-tier loot that players can take advantage of in Apex Legends. This area features the wreck of a starship surrounded by scaffolding that has everything from guns and grenades just lying out in the open to several loot bins and an explosive hold. Apex Legends Storm Point map has its own crashed ship, but that tends to be much more of a hot zone. The wreck also has a large, networked complex of buildings in its shadow, which also contain a lot of loot and loot bins. This area can get busy, depending on the exact flight path of the ship that carries Legends into Kings Canyon, but surprisingly it currently isn't too popular with Apex Legends players. A few squads will likely choose to land here, making it ideal for players who want to get good loot and fight without having to battle through the mad scramble for guns and explosives that happens in busier locations. The Relic. For the best early game battles, 2 images close. Located where fan favorite location Skull Town used to be, the Relic features a dense urban area located in the shadow of the skull of a massive creature that gave Skull Town its name. This is far and away one of the most popular landing zones in Reforged Kings Canyon, and it's not uncommon to see up to a third of players in a match attempt to land here. What loot can be found here is usually quickly snapped up, with players often having to resort to their bare fists to try and knock out their opponents. The Relic is crowded and chaotic, and great for players who love to go big or go home at the start of a match. Players who visit later in the match will often find the whole area eerily empty and littered with player death boxes. To land here, players will want to read up on the best tips, tricks, and strategies for their Legends first. The Desert. For a quieter start, 2 images close, the desert that makes up most of the western portion of Apex Legends Kings Canyon has plenty of landmarks that draw lots of players in, but it's also littered with lots of smaller settlements and building complexes. These are great for players who want to take things a little slower and do some proper prep by collecting loot rather than getting up in their opponent's faces the second they hit the ground. The main advantage here for players is flexibility. There are quite a few little towns, houses, and structures to choose from, and many of them have enough loot for a duo or even a trio to share amongst themselves. There are also several landmarks within reach, so players can prep somewhere quiet and then jump in at the end of the early game fights to mop up any survivors with some of Apex Legends' most impressive trick shots. Choosing the right landing spot is a crucial choice players have to make every time they enter the Apex games, but players' performance depends on more than just landing in the right place. Other aspects of the game, including using their chosen Legends to their full potential and participating in good teamwork and team play, matter just as much in Apex Legends, if not more. Source: Respawn. Release date: Apex Legends original release date 2019-02-04. Developer: Respawn Entertainment. Franchise: Titanfall. Genre: Shooter, Battle Royale. Platform: Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PC. Publisher: Electronic Arts. ESRB, not yet rated.